Last night, I had a chance to get out and see the new Halloween film. Now, you guys know, and some of you guys have been very disappointed with me and very upset with me for the fact that I don't actually like Halloween all that much. I am not a big Halloween fan, not even the original. This new film, of course, coming out, joining in that new trend of new films that replace all the other sequels. So this was what they're calling the true sequel to Halloween. I haven't liked any of the other ones. What did I think about this Halloween? I'll tell you this. I didn't think it was quite as good as a lot of people are making it out to be. Because there are some early reviews that came out of festivals or people are saying, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever, and like completely losing their minds, right? I didn't think it was quite that good, but I will also say this. It's still damn good. It is still damn good. And here's my first impression. This is a film that builds momentum as it goes and builds to a really great crescendo. Because I'll be honest with you, the first 15 minutes that I'm sitting there in this movie and watching this film, I'm thinking, why is everybody saying this is so great? This is not that great. I mean, it wasn't awful. It wasn't garbage, but it was quite cheesy, and I just wasn't feeling it. But what happened was, after about the 10 or 15 minute mark, it starts to pick up momentum. And I started to feel like, you know what? This slow start was by design. This is a film that is designed to build up momentum from start to finish and to go and race towards that finish line. Because once you get about 15 minutes into the film, it just starts getting better and better and better and better and better, and the kills are more gruesome. It becomes more shocking. They do things in this film that I never imagined, that I did not think they would do even in a Halloween film. Now, if I'm going to talk about anything, talk about the things I really like about this film, we've got to start with Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis, as we all expected her to be, is really the heartbeat of this movie. She is the emotional heart of the movie. She's the intensity heart of the movie. She is the narrative heart of the movie. Everything with her in this film just works, because I'll tell you what, if Jamie Lee Curtis does not work in this role, and we don't buy into her and the whole thing living in exile and the whole life problems that she had, if this doesn't work and she doesn't pull this off, none of the rest of the movie works at all. All the great stuff they do with Michael doesn't work. All the great stuff they do with the town, with the teenagers, none of it works if you don't start by Jamie Lee Curtis working. And because she works, everything else just becomes accentuated. The kills that Michael gives, the creepiness that we get from Michael, it's just really great. And again, like I said, the kills are far more gruesome than I ever imagined they would be in a film like this. So look, do I think this is a perfect movie? No. Do I think this is a top 3 movie of the year? No. Am I as enthusiastic as a lot of the other critics proclaiming this like one of the best films of the year? No. But I have never been this enthusiastic about a Halloween movie. This is a damn good film. And if you were thinking about seeing this film or you weren't sure, let me answer that question for you. You want to see this movie. You're going to want to go out and see this movie. So when you get a chance, run out and check that out. Talking about movies of this year and some scary movies of this year, I still believe the very best movie of 2018 so far is John Krasinski's A Quiet Place. Not the best horror film, not the best film by a new first-time director, but the best film of the year, period, end stop. You guys know that. I've been talking about that for a while. He did an amazing job, not just like directing the film, co-writing the film, and starring in the damn thing. He did such a great job with this movie with very, very little directorial experience behind him. He walked into this film where there's a lot of silence. It's all about atmosphere. It's all about tension. And he just conducted that thing like a maestro and made what I thought was the best film of the year. Now, obviously, they announced some time ago that they were going to do A Quiet Place 2. So we've known that was coming. But they never committed that John Krasinski was either going to write or direct it. Now, we knew he was going to be on as a producer. Well, John Krasinski recently came out at he was at an event and he was asked about it, and John Krasinski said the following about his involvement at this point with A Quiet Place 2. Krasinski said this: I had this small idea for a sequel, but I didn't think it would go anywhere. They heard some pitches, and I told Andrew Form, the producer of the film, about this little idea, and he told me to think about it a little longer. And then I thought, this might really work. So I'm currently writing the sequel. And you know what? There are two interesting things in that little comment. Number one, is, of course, that Krasinski himself is going to be writing the sequel. That's great. That's what we wanted to hear. We wanted some consistency with that tone and that atmosphere that he conducted in the first film to carry over into the second one. The second interesting thing is that the producers are already hearing pitches. That means they are lining up other directors to come in and give their visions. So it kind of looks like to me that the only story here isn't just that Krasinski is probably going to end up writing it. It's sounding more and more like he's not going to end up directing it. Now listen, you don't have to have the same director to come in for the next film to be successful. You don't have to have the same director there to come in for it to be a good film. It could be good, it could be great, whatever, especially if you got Krasinski writing the damn thing. I'm not going to lie to you, though. I'm feeling a little bit disappointed that the notion that we may not get him directing it, that kind of hurts my feeling. But let me ask you this, Courtney. You saw this movie. You saw A Quiet Place. What did you think about the film?
You know what? I think what impressed me most about A Quiet Place was that there wasn't very much talking going on. And acting, I think, is already hard enough. So I'm always very, very impressed when, like, there's not that much to say in a script and they can just convey it with their emotions and their actions and their movements.
Especially for a director to conduct and make that all happen, to build that tension, build their chemistry relationships without a lot of dialogue. It's like, I just couldn't believe what they were pulling off.
Absolutely. So our first email comes from Carrie Fielder. She says, "Hey John, with the cancellation of Iron Fist, is it just a matter of time before they announce that Marvel is taking all the Netflix and Marvel shows off of Netflix and over to the new Disney streaming service? How is this all going to play out?"
Yeah, that's been a big question ever since, they announced, a while ago, ever since like last year, whatever, that Disney announced that they were going to be going with their own streaming service. The first question on everybody's head wasn't, what are you going to do with the MCU? What are you going to do with Star Wars? The first question on everybody's mind was, what the hell's going to happen with my Netflix Marvel shows? What's going to happen with my Daredevil? What's going to happen with my Luke Cage? That's what everybody was concerned about. That's what everybody was wondering about, right? And of course, the speculation has built and built and built. And then the speculation got even worse the other day when it got announced that Iron Fist was being canceled. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So it still leaves up in the air. Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Defenders, although it doesn't look like they're going to do another Defender season anyway, so you can take that off the table. So people have been worried about what's going to be going on. Well, the Netflix chief content officer, Ted Sarandos, had this to say about that. He said the following: those shows, talking about Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, those shows are for us to cancel. And we're super happy with their performance so far. Those shows are for us to cancel, and we are super happy with their performance so far. Now, one of the big questions that came out was when Disney announced their streaming service, what kind of deal does Netflix and Marvel have? Can Marvel just pull these shows anytime they want? Do they have an ongoing contract with them like they have with Sony for Spider-Man? So Spider-Man, as long as Spider-Man movies are being made, they get to keep the license. Is that the case? I think this comment from the Netflix executive makes that pretty clear. Netflix gets to keep these characters as long as they want and as long as they're making these shows. And as he so poignantly put it, it is up to Netflix to decide when those shows get canceled or when they don't get canceled. So the ball seems to be in their court. So then the question comes up, well, then whose decision was it to cancel Iron Fist? Now, we talked about this comment and this statement that Marvel and Netflix put out about Iron Fist the other day, but I think it's worth it for us to revisit this comment. Let's take a look at this. This is the statement from Marvel and Netflix regarding the cancellation of Iron Fist. They said the following: Marvel's Iron Fist will not return for a third season on Netflix. Notice it doesn't say it's not returning for a third season, period. It says it's not returning for a third season on Netflix. Everyone at Marvel Television and Netflix is proud of the series and grateful for all the hard work and our incredible cast, crew, and showrunners. We're thankful to the fans who have watched these 2 seasons and for the partnership we've shared on this series. While the series on Netflix has ended. The immortal Iron Fist will live on. Now, we talked the other day on the show about, does this wording, and maybe I'm just playing a game of semantics here, but could this wording suggest that when they're going out of the way to say, the series has ended on Netflix, it won't live on Netflix, could that mean that they worked out a deal with Marvel that maybe Marvel's going to take Iron Fist over to the Disney streaming service? It's possible. I mean, Iron Fist Season 2 was a significant improvement over Iron Fist Season 1. I think we all agree with that. Where we may disagree is how good was it. I still didn't think it was all that great, but it was definitely better than Season 1. Does Disney even want Iron Fist on their streaming service? Who knows? But for now, we at least know that Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, their home is on Netflix, and for the foreseeable future, that's where it's going to stay. All right, let's move on to the second email. What's next?
Hi, John. Did you hear that CW is planning a Superman show? Do you think the crossover in December will lend into a potential show? What are your thoughts?
All right, well, first of all, you guys know what my thoughts are on the CW Superman. I do not like what CW has done with Superman. I'm a fan of the CW universe. I like this. Even when I don't like Arrow, I still like the CW universe. You know, I'll watch Arrow because I'm a sucker for it, and I think Stephen Amell's great. I love The Flash, which Aaron Cummings was on The Flash the other night, which was really great. I'm lukewarm on Legends of Tomorrow. I love Black Lightning. That was my favorite new superhero show of the year last year. And Supergirl they've turned Superman to a jobber, so I hate that. I have no real interest in them taking this jobber Superman that they created and building a show around him because they've already ruined the character. They sent him in there they put Superman on this show for no other reason than to get beat up by Supergirl. That was the only reason they put him on the show, was to put Supergirl over. In wrestling terms, that is a jobber. You send in, and now fighting Hulk Hogan, Edgar Martinez, and nobody guy named Edgar Martinez runs in the ring. He's what's called a jobber. His job is simply to go in there and let Hulk Hogan beat him up to make Hulk Hogan look good. That's what they did to Superman. I don't mind you doing that to some comic book characters, but you do not do that to Batman, and you do not do that to Superman. Now, my thoughts on that are well documented. I'm not happy about the idea. Somebody then asked me, do you think this could be a way for them to redeem this character? Could this be a way for them to redeem the Superman character? And I thought, yeah, it's possible. But here's the thing we got to bring to everybody's awareness here. Before we go much further into this whole story about, what are the ramifications of CW doing a Superman movie, keep this in mind. While everybody is running these headlines that CW is developing a Superman series for their network, I always tell you guys, don't just look at the headlines, look at the source. Where are all these people getting this information from? The Superman getting his own series start, when you trace it back for all these sites, it all comes from one site. It's a site called Fandom Wire. And if you're looking at your computer monitor right now and saying, what the fuck is Fandom Wire? You're not alone. I ain't never heard of Fandom Wire. I don't think anybody's heard of Fandom Wire. And I'm not dissing on Fandom Wire. Maybe it's run by some really smart, great people. Maybe it is. I'm just saying it is not what you would put up there as a high, credible source. And they don't even say how they heard it. They don't say that we've got an insight. It's just they wrote it. CW is now developing this, and that's where it came from. And another site saw that information and ran with it as a story. And then another site saw that information and ran with it as a story. So off the top, I'm just going to say here that I don't even believe the story. Like, I don't even believe this thing is true. I don't think they're actually making a movie or a TV show around Superman. I just don't think they're doing it at this point, and I don't think there's any point in doing it. Now, anything is possible, right? In this weird, wacky world, anything is possible. They could be bringing a Superman into his own show. It absolutely could be. I'm just saying right now, I don't really think it's I don't think it's something that they're actually doing. But if they did, here's the interesting thing about that. If they did, the CW network really, look, it's already changing its identity, but the CW network is going to take a massive step between really altering their identity even more, because it's basically going to be a network of nothing but comic book shows. And you can even make an argument that Riverdale is a little bit of a comic book show too. And Supernatural is just Supernatural. It's just awesome. But let's look at this. If they do launch a Superman show, this is what the CW lineup looks like. Take a look at this. So obviously, we're going to have a Superman, right? We got him there. Of course, we're going to have Supergirl, who's still there. We're going to have Flash and Arrow, Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow. You're looking at a full lineup of nothing but, it's over here, of nothing but these superhero shows start to bottom. Now, if you like the shows, that's not a problem. Here's the other thing that makes me wonder about the legitimacy of this story. It's not whether or not CW is willing to use, or Warner Brothers is willing to let CW use the Superman character, because clearly they've lost interest in putting Superman on the big screen, so maybe they can use a small screen. But it's this. Arrow is a very different character from Flash. Flash is a very different character from Black Lightning. Black Lightning is a very different show from Legends of Tomorrow, and so on and so forth. Superman and Supergirl, they have the same origin, essentially. They come from the same place. They essentially have the same powers, for the most part. Would it really be all that different of a show from a show they've already got on their network? Would it really be that fundamentally different? Because right now, as I said, when you look through that lineup that CW is putting out right now, they're all very different shows. They have the same kind of tone, yes, but narratively, character-wise, they're all very different from each other. There's a unique DNA to each one of those shows. You get into something like this, and you can't really say that. You get into a Superman and a Supergirl show, you can't really say that. So, number of reasons. The source of this, I think, puts this in question. Do you need to have a Supergirl and a Superman show running concurrently? I think that puts it into question. But then again, in this world, especially in entertainment, anything is possible. All right, let's move on to the next email. What's next?
Hi, John, a big fan from India. Did you notice Disney's Nutcracker and the Four Realms review embargo will be lifted on 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Halloween night, which is just 22 hours before the film opens to the public? So this suggests Disney is not confident in the movie, right? I appreciate your thoughts on this topic. Thanks, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, Disney is a studio that we're just kind of used to seeing them put out press screenings really early and lifting review embargoes really early. So it became really noticeable when Christopher Robin came out a little while ago with Ewan McGregor, which I actually quite liked. It was really weird that they put that out, and the review embargo was like just 48 hours before the first public screenings. Disney didn't have a lot of confidence in that movie. They probably should have, because it's pretty good, but it wasn't great, but it was pretty good. And I think there are a number of people that actually quite liked it. With this Nutcracker movie, though, not only is the review embargo really lifting about like less than 24 hours before the first public screenings. Because remember, the official launch date is Friday, but that really means Thursday night, right? Not only is that the case, but I noticed this about a week ago when I got my screening invitation for Nutcracker and the Four Realms, and it was for October 30th. And I had to double check it because I was like, that's just like 2 days before the movie opens. Like, forget the review embargo. I mean, just letting us see it. So look, I think Nutcracker looks really magical. I've enjoyed the trailers. I like what we're seeing from it. But Disney clearly doesn't have a lot of belief in this film. They clearly don't, because this is the studio that when they do believe it, they take it right to the end zone. They will show it to critics 3-4 weeks in advance. They will lift a review embargo. They'll lift the social review embargo immediately, like 3 weeks in advance. Then they'll lift the full review embargo like a week and a half, 2 weeks in advance, because they know positive buzz will build up the opening of their film. That's what Disney does. They play this playbook to perfection. They've done such a good job with it. So it becomes even more noticeable when a studio like Disney that likes to play this game of getting that buzz going early with everybody, it becomes extra noticeable when they put it out late. Now, with Christopher Robin, it didn't mean the movie was bad, but you can clearly tell they didn't have that confidence in it that they had in a lot of their other films. They weren't sure how the critics were going to respond to it. I would say this, it is not a foregone conclusion that Nutcracker in the Four Realms is going to be a bad film per se, but I think we can probably safely say that Disney doesn't feel a lot of confidence that the critics are going to like this movie. And it becomes really obvious when it's a studio like them. So, will this film be any good? We're only a few weeks away from finding out, but let's see if that kind of like pattern holds up. All right, guys, with all of the email questions now out of the way today,